All right. Well, this is the Virtual Design Master Sponsor Spotlight. I'm here with Shannon Snowden from Zerto, who's our premier sponsor for Virtual Design Master Season 2. Hello, Shannon. How are you doing tonight?
Doing great. How you doing, Eric?
Very good. We were very lucky. Obviously, it's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of stuff going on with the competition. We've known Zerto, through members of the creative team. As professionals, in our industry, we're using the products, all over the place. You guys have had a great community focus, and we've seen you with the V Brown Bag through the webinars. In fact, you guys just had a webinar recently, or maybe another one coming up. I know there's always a series going on. But what we wanted to do today was kind of take a few minutes out and sort of spotlight, what's cool about Zerto and what's different. Our whole purpose around the Virtual Design Master was to do something different. It was a new opportunity to, take things in a direction that maybe hadn't been done before and sort of showcase great talent and great features and great products. So it's kind of a natural marriage that you folks came on board, and we want to take a few moments. And I know you've got kind of a neat story as to how you got started with Zerto. So maybe Shannon, if you want to introduce yourself and talk about how you came to arrive at Zerto.
Yeah, so we were talking before about the fact that the way I met Zerto was I was actually a delegate for Tech Field Day, and back in 2011 when Zerto was still in stealth, they did an NDA session with us, and that was one of those things when I saw it that it was sort of like the first time you see vMotion work, and it's like, if this really works the way they say it does, it's different, and it's something significant, and it's something that will sell itself if it's actually stable. So following that path, of sort of the VMware product analogy. Back in the day when I started with ESX 1.5, what got it adopted was the
Go ahead.
product itself. The product itself worked very well, and that's what made it accepted faster and out of test and into production. And that's really what sort of the trajectory that Zerto's taken of. It works, and we've always had a close association with technical people because our guys knew the product worked and just needed to be in the technical influencers' hands. And to that point, as we were talking, we've got a good NFR program for bloggers and for the experts and people in the industry that love technology.
Well, that's the good thing. Again, you've taken a real good tactic on getting out and engaging the community, engaging experts and implementers and system integrators, as well as just engaging customers who want to kick the tires on it and see how it actually works. It's more and more folks are starting to sort of smarten up and see that's the right way to go. These sort of purely coached, proof of concepts just really aren't the way things are going. You're seeing more and more customer awareness is happening, and more expertise is rolling up through the sysadmins, and we're finding more and more architectural decisions are coming kind of bottom up, and it's neat. Like you talk about, obviously where you came from, and that's you saw the stuff work, and then that's what brings it in the door. It's pretty cool. So Zerto, and they're an interesting organization, and you've had some really obviously quite a lot of growth in products, feature set and everything. What did you like about Zerto, and kind of what was different about maybe even the people side of the organization as well as the product side, and what kind of sets it apart from other folks that are out in the industry?
Yeah, so when I was on the other side of the fence, as a customer, after I saw it and I wanted to implement it somewhere as a professional services consultant, and I had that opportunity and just installing it, and then the questions I did have, their support just jumped right on it, and it was really a different experience. I wasn't routed through some complex phone tree and get back to you someday. It was real people, and they were very concerned about making sure that the product worked. They're very passionate about the product too, and that's carried through even through today. It's a great time that we have, working for a company that is producing a product that our customers just love. If we, most of our customer satisfaction, surveys are always nearly 10 out of 10. We may see a 9, or if an 8 shows up, we do a red alert. What's going on here? So it's commonplace for us to see that sort of response, and the people are very excited about it. So that sort of permeates through the whole organization of just passionate people making a good product.
And I know, sort of stateside, you guys are in Startup Row in Boston, right? And then overseas, the actual head office is out of Israel, is it?
It's in Israel, yeah, yeah. So our development office and a lot of folks are in Israel. Then we have an office there in Boston for the operations. We opened one in the UK as well. So
Oh wow, okay.
we're getting more global as we speak. And there's interesting stories. I mean, we have people seeking us out from countries that we haven't even really marketed to yet, and it's because the product works. And we had some folks in Korea that did a lot of work. They were a service provider, and they actually did some translation and things to where they could use the product and implement it. And they're a very successful partner of ours now. And they found us because we weren't ready yet for that market, but they're enjoying it, and we love selling licenses and everybody being satisfied.
Yes, it's nice when the market chases you, and instead of having to go out and seek out the markets. It's especially
Right.
we're seeing a lot of products that are out there that are kind of it's starting to look like a real messy Venn diagram in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Even VMware themselves, truthfully, are kind of starting to dabble in areas which are sort of dipping their toes in the waters of where they have a lot of partner vendors. I mean, obviously, you guys you have features that VMware is sort of dabbling in a tiny bit, but we know there's clear differentiators. So for some folks that are looking, going, oh well, if I wanted to use just VDP and I wanted to use the native vSphere replication, obviously, what are the sort of key differences right out of the gate that Zerto does that makes it that sort of set it and forget it style?
Well, I think the key is just the logic of how you implement it. So because it's the replication product and the orchestration was designed together, the workflows of the failover and the failback and the reverse protection, that all has been thought out from a different perspective. It's not we need to marry one or two or three different products together to achieve replication and work and failover the entire data center workflow. We were designed that way from the beginning, and in that you get a lot of streamlined as far as some of the checkboxes and just ease of use. So from implementing it, you are able to do the things you normally think that you would want to do, but traditionally haven't been able to do. There's been multiple steps. So with us, you basically install the software, pair sites, figure out what VMs you want to protect, and you protect them. And then failover, failback are the operations that are just native when you're building the actual affinity groupings of your VMs. So it's very intuitive, and that makes it adopted quicker. But it also we see a lot of customers who are trying to manage different products, one for backup, one for DR, and each have their own collection of components to make that work. So the administrative overhead is quite high. So anything that streamlines one or some of both of the components is compelling to them. And we've actually had customers say that we can protect more machines because the administrative effort isn't as high as we were anticipating.
Right.
So there's in the streamlining of things, there's a lot of saved admin time and the operational cost.
Yeah, I mean, and you touched on it right there. The magic word is orchestration. And admin time. That's that intangible thing. And I'm constantly having to face folks and talk about, like, price is one thing. I mean, that's the that capex opex stuff, right? Like, we think about that, but they often don't account for staff time. And you came out of the role of implementing this stuff and running these products and running data centers, so that pain. All the folks that are watching are in that same situation where we're all IT pros that are out there on the front lines, and those are magical hours when you know that you can push that aside and say that that's taken care of, and I've got trust in it. That's a good thing. I'm talking about trust. So what's the method that people can sort of test drive when it's live? One of the challenges I know, again, with those sort of free products from VMware is they're free for a reason. And no offense to what VMware are doing, but when you look at vSphere replication, it's great, but you just better hope it works.
Yeah.
It's got a general green light, red light, but there's no yellow light in there, and a lot can happen at a yellow light. But what does Zerto do as far as like sandboxing and being able to test drive stuff? Because I know that's a key feature for me to be able to say, if I do BCP tests, I don't necessarily want to go dark in production. I'd love to be able to move stuff aside and give it a kick.
Yeah. So the testing is very cool the way we do it. We allow you to not impact production, but you can do complete failover testing, and you can do extended failover testing by what we call, if you want to like clone an entire affinity group, say we call them virtual protection groups, but essentially think of it as the collection of one or more servers that makes an application happen. So in effect, you can through failover testing, we will allow you to do all of that and get the boot order, shutdown, startup sequencing, changing IPs, everything. And that can all be done while the production is still being replicated without any impact to it. In fact, you could do if you had a disaster during your testing, you can fail that over. Okay, so we have in essence, a parallel stream going as not replication. I shouldn't say stream because that's going to make everybody think, we got two streams of replication. We've got the production replication going, but then we have the capability of supporting a testing operation that is non-disruptive. So you're able to do complete isolated testing, and you're able to and that's how we have customers that know exactly the RTO on their critical applications because they do the non-disruptive testing. And when it comes to a failover for either they'll use it for regulatory or disaster avoidance in the case of some of our customers are in hurricane zones. But they'll have another data center, and they just schedule an outage. It takes about 30 minutes to fail over all their critical servers. And they know that, and they know the RTO of it because of our non-disruptive testing. Now, if you have extended application testing, we can also do take the VMs at the target site and actually spin up clones of the entire affinity group, the VPG, at the on an isolated network, and then you can have some app owner do extended testing for as long as they'd like. So there's two different methods there.
Does that kind of like snapshot off of the protected instance and then run out of a sort of a snapshot version of the instance so that it creates its own separate delta that you can just walk away?
Actually, the clone operation is what it sounds like. It's a full clone of whatever point in time that you choose. It does a clone, complete clone, and that is a freestanding VM that has nothing to do with the source one at that point. So it creates a clone.
Excellent.
Now, that is for the extended testing. For our live testing, let's say, the shorter duration testing, what we do is something different. You're actually using, so, there's some of the competitors, they talk about how they automate testing. What they're actually automating a lot of times is the ability to make sure that a snapshot occurs of the target, and a snapshot is created, and they test against a snapshot. When in fact, I've actually had back in my days doing SRM, I would have snapshots successful and the actual test fail because of permissions issues. So you're not really testing the actual production VMDK at that point. You've tested the snapshot works and that you can do a test, but not the failover. What we do is we actually do much like what you described for our production testing, which is there's a difference file created from the actual VMDK. So I know I'm testing the VMDK that will come to life if I fail it over, and I make sure that all works.
And then the good thing too as well, I love what you mentioned, is that a lot of people don't really account for this. When you're in a test mode and you're doing, say even like a live failover test or whatever, there's that there's that vulnerability of being in a failed over state, even as a partial failover, because a lot of products and a lot of other tools, then have to go back and sort of resync that. And if you're talking about, big, I've got VMs that are being protected by other, tools and products, and some of them are up to, a terabyte. They're just giant amounts of data. So that resync operation, now you've got that sort of vulnerability point. There's other, like sometimes they take snapshots and there's other CDP stuff going on, but there's always that fear that, oh, what if it doesn't roll back to a clean snapshot? Or what if it's mid-operation and I can't get control back? We know even vCenter will do that sometimes, where it just goes, it's partway through some operation, and then the only way to do it is to go bounce the management agents, and then all sorts of exciting stuff happens, when you've got a lot of operations going. And when you're in sort of DR mode or simulated DR mode, that's the last thing you want to have, is this fear that you're now not protected if something were to really go wrong right now.
Yeah, the whole purpose of the test is sort of negated because you're not feeling any better that it's going to work necessarily, because there's all these caveats involved. With us, it's very clean. You do a failover test. It's using the target VMDK as I described, and I know that's either working or it's not. And if I need to, insert a script because I got a cranky server in there that needs, services restarted or something, like, happens, then you work all that out. But you've worked it out on the actual target, and so you have a high level of confidence that it's going to fail over, and that's actually what you're really wanting out of the test.
Confidence makes happy CIOs, it makes happy sysadmins, and happy consumers, because we like to see services stay up. And one of the things that's key on what we're doing with our, Virtual Design Master, we go through some theoretical designs, and we do some really wicked large designs. We're a little nutty in how we're doing things, because we're testing folks in their ability to really think big. And then as we roll on and further down the line, we saw last year, once we hit the third challenge, we were doing, smaller deployments, but, effectively the same tools and techniques, just scaling it back. I'm a big proponent for, leaning on being able to target an SMB space, because, there's a lot of big enterprise folks, and that's great, but that's missing a big hunk of the market. And so Zerto, how do you guys deal with, where's your sort of floor and where's your ceiling on what you see as a customer base, or is there one?
Well, the dynamics have kind of changed from 2012 when we introduced the multi-tenancy, and cloud service providers just absorbed this up like as fast as possible, because the technology is there that we're natively multi-tenant, and we're also natively hardware agnostic, and we're also natively giving you up to 5 days of point-in-time recovery, which are checklist items that these service providers love. So, previously maybe we wouldn't have been able to hit as small a company because, our minimum package is like 15 VMs. Maybe that's a little bit larger than some of the smallest, but it's certainly not too small for a service provider. And so what they do is they'll fill in even maybe smaller organizations that might not be the perfect fit for our enterprise version, but they've got important VMs. In fact, there's some degree of maybe the most critical VMs of any company is in a small company. I've got 4 servers, and if any of them go down, I'm out of business.
Yeah.
So those are critical too. And so our cloud service providers, we've got over 150 now. So there's this whole thing happening where there's been so many pick us up that we're almost getting this ecosystem of customers and service providers to where you're getting a lot of choices. So I can go down a list of service providers now and go, okay, I'm talking to these guys. I can talk to you. What kind of deal is a small company? Can we work out here for my DR? I also may have some other services that are needed, but even let's say you're at an SMB that fits our 15 VM model for enterprise. Um, the interesting thing about the components that they would install, they're the same components that the CSP is going to install. The
Right.
only difference is there are a couple of components that make it multi-tenant and make an overall cloud management possible. Other than that, though, it's the exact same components. So there's the knowledge from a customer standpoint, regardless of where they go. If they just go somewhere that has Zerto as the other end, they're going to understand how it works. And so and that touches on a concept that you'll hear a lot more in the future about, is what we're calling sort of a cloud fabric sort of idea. It's a concept, of if you can federate different things and not try to subsume what they do natively, but just connect them and get mobility going. That's an exciting proposition, really, and
Definitely.
you'll hear more from that, later.
Yeah, I think again, I'm a huge proponent for cloud. I'm also I kind of sit on the pundit side because I look at both sides, and I know there's really there's strong reasons why it's powerful and useful, and also why it's dangerous to some certain customers for certain reasons, right? It's just
Hmm.
not, the use case may not be there because of a host of reasons, whether they're regulatory or whether they're just not staffed to be able to handle that style, or they're not prepared for it. But
Right.
it's definitely coming. Using the disaster recovery as a service type of model, I think, is probably one of the key ones, because it lets you kind of do dance a little bit in the cloud,
Mm.
but it's still your data center,
Yep.
and then once they recover a couple of those machines out there, all of a sudden they go, oh, you know what, the recovery worked pretty cool.
Mm.
Why don't we put a couple of live boxes out there? And that's kind of a great tool for service providers. And like you said, you guys are, I know you're building great relationships, and I know there's some. So Zerto's interesting because you have some relationships that are public that you have with service providers, and I know there's some that are, there's Zerto behind the scenes
Yeah.
probably, and
Yeah.
we not necessarily know. And so that's the cool thing, is a lot of us may be Zerto customers, we don't even know it yet.
Yeah, we're the invisible hand behind a lot of it, because I think if you mapped it out, if you were an analyst or something, if you looked at the number of service providers that are actually providing DR as a service, it a lot of it started in 2012, big time, because that's when we introduced the multi-tenant and hardware agnostic, to service providers. And in a lot of ways, that forced us to grow up faster in the product, because the adoption rate and the number of VMs increased dramatically. From when I got a service provider with hundreds and thousands of VMs, they have certain needs, and like you talked about with the customer feedback, um, that drove a lot of our reporting, a lot of the APIs, a lot of the things that you need for large scale, deployments. So the product, fortunately for us, the replication and the orchestration core of the product was designed for heavy, intense workloads. And so we had to just bring the reporting along faster, and some of the API and the management along faster, and we've done that. So it's been an interesting thing. It's fun. I've been at Zerto now 2 years in August, and talked to customers that go, you know what? I see a feature that I requested. It's actually in the product. That's kind of cool, And we get a lot of that because we're very tuned in to our customer base, and
Definitely the right
it's
way, great way to go. And it's been proven out. So again, it's we're very proud of the support that your team is giving our virtual design master competitors. And as a lot of us, like I said, people that are watching at home, they're going to be customers. And so what's the best way for us to find you, Shannon? Maybe VMworld. Are you actually going to be at VMworld this year, or?
Oh yeah, we'll be at VMworld. I don't know the booth number, so I'll get scolded for that. But you'll find us. We're going to be all over the place. We're doing V Stogies, so come see us there. Tech Field Day, then of course our booth. I'm Shannon Snowden on Twitter, so just Shannon Snowden. And go to Zerto.com, and you'll see all kinds of demos. You can do trials. If you're a blogger or a V expert, someone in the industry that's an influencer, and if you like an NFR, request it there. It's very simple. We want to make it available because you know, one thing we found is the more we get the technology into influencers and technical people's hands, all kinds of light bulbs go off. It's like disaster recovery and just migrating data centers has always been harder than it should be, considering how easy inside of a data center that virtualization has made it. Once you try to go outside the walls, it's like we're back to the Stone Age of depending on hardware. So.
Yeah, we love to think that that it's just like, oh, can't you just do this out to that other data center? Like, oh, yeah, no, it's it's 140 milliseconds.
Right.
Like,
right.
oh, no, there's nothing that can do that. And then it gets into that sort of big enterprise, or firing it onto bare metal and putting it in a courier cart and sending it out. There's a lot of really, really odd ways that we've kind of had to adapt. So it's neat to see this as a use case. Well, it's great. So we'll put some stuff in the post notes, with your Twitter, with information about how to get at the NFR. This has been great. Shannon, like I said, I've sat for some of your webinars before, and like I said, you did some work with the V Brown Bag, and that's been great. Hopefully we're going to see you again up there soon, and I'll look forward to seeing you at VMworld. And as we wind down, we're heading in. Challenge 3 comes out tonight, and we're going to twist some folks up. It's going to be a wild night. So as people take a look at the content that's coming from Challenge 2, and we head into Challenge 3, it's going to be interesting to see how things go. So again, Shannon Snowden from Zerto, thank you very much for sitting in with us, and we look forward to seeing much more from Zerto and the Zerto family.
Thanks a lot, Eric.